Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Human and Sports Performance Series. This is session 2 with Adena Neglia. She is a dietitian. She's here to give you some great game on what to eat to stay hydrated, to stay energetic, and perform on the court when you need it. So, Adena, take it away.
Thanks so much for joining, whether you're here live or watching the recording. My name's Adena. I think you're already introed me, sports dietitian. I work with Mount Sinai Performance 360, the Brooklyn Nets, the New Jersey Devils, and various other teams over the years, New York City Ballet, American Ballet Theater. And today is just a brief overview for anyone that is interested in sports nutrition and needs like a good review of some of the basics, everything from macronutrient breakdown to what's the best thing to have pre, intra, post-workout, meal timing, a little hydration, supplements. It sounds like a lot. We're going to touch on all of it. If there's any interest in going in more depth at any of those topics, maybe that's something we could do for a future presentation, but we're going to start general here. So just starting off with why nutrition matters. I think everyone knows that nutrition is important, but for the athlete, I think there's some additional things that we need to consider. So it obviously supports a strong athletic performance. If you're going to play like an athlete or train like an athlete, you need to eat like an athlete. And you'll see how to do that in the next couple of slides. Increases mental capacity or ability to just think, be sharp, like stay focused. Increases overall energy levels, increases conditioning levels, and probably one of the most important things, decreasing risk of injury. If our body's not getting what it needs to heal, or if it doesn't have enough energy, and then you're just kind of a little bit more fatigued and maybe just you're not on top of your game, you miss a step or whatever it is, having good nutrition can help mentally and physically. So I think that's really important because the mental game is huge too. It's not just all the physical. So just to compare, if we were to look at the poorly fueled athlete, maybe they're skipping meals and they're only eating, candy for lunch, and they're not getting enough protein all day, so on and so forth, right? So they're going to feel fatigued, so they're not going to perform as well. They're not going to perform to their full potential. Poor growth, especially if you're a younger athlete. And that could also be growth of muscle in an older athlete, right? If you're trying to build muscle and your nutrition is not on point, or you're not, again, getting enough calories, getting enough protein, getting enough carbohydrate, all of those things will be affected. As athletes, you have very high energy needs, or as any athletes do. So it's really important to stay on top of that and meet those energy needs. We could have some loss of muscle mass and even bone mass if we're not fueling correctly, or if we're not getting enough of particular nutrients, including calcium and vitamin D, and obviously back to the protein with the loss of muscle mass. So if we can't keep our calories up and our protein up, our body is going to start decreasing that muscle mass. Decreased immunity. There's a lot of obviously vitamins and minerals that play a role in our immune health, but also just overall getting enough in and eating an adequate balanced diet can really affect our immune system, and obviously in a positive way if we're doing it in balance. And like we said before, higher injury risk if you're not getting the recovery fuel that you need, or if you're not hydrated, higher risk of injury. So what I basically, as a general term, if you were just to kind of remember one thing, I would say try to think of aiming for a fuel mix at your meals. Oops. Probably need to plug this in. And so that means, I'm going to disappear over here, but I'm still talking. This means that each meal needs to contain some carbohydrates, some protein, and some fat. So that creates a complete meal. And a sustainable meal, meaning that it's going to carry you for a few hours. All of these nutrients work together to keep you satiated, to keep you, feeling good, release of energy. So we'll learn more about each of these in the next upcoming slides. But this is kind of, again, the one thing, if you can remember, okay, do I have my carbs, my protein? Do I have my fat? Just going to plug this in really super fast. Okay, so let's start with carbs. I think they're always a popular topic. And unfortunately, I still see so many people that are living in the late 90s, early 2000s, and still very scared of carbs. And carbohydrates, especially for an active person, it's your main source of fuel. It's the main source of fuel for your body and your brain. It's like putting gas in a car. You can't put ketchup in a gas tank, right? Like you got to put the proper fuel. You need to put in what it is that gives that car energy. So for us, it's carbs. We can't trick our body with cauliflower rice. So it's our main source. The brain can actually only use carbohydrates for energy. So I think that's always super interesting. Brain needs the equivalent of about 8 or 9 slices of bread a day just to function. It doesn't have to be exactly 8 to 9 slices of bread, but any type of carbohydrate. So provide energy for optimal performance and delays fatigue. So we store carbohydrates in our muscles, and that's what our muscles break down for energy. So once we run out of those, that's when you might feel like you're hitting a wall, or maybe your legs feel heavy, or you're bonking, or you can't concentrate as well. And we'll go into how to avoid that. Helps maintain normal blood sugar levels, essential for brain food. So I'm sure some of you have experience when you've gone long hours without eating and you start to feel either irritable or fatigued or lightheaded, just really low energy. That's a sign that your blood sugar is low. So by consistently incorporating fuel mixes that have carbohydrates throughout the day, we're able to keep those blood sugars stable so you can focus and perform your best. The last thing that I always find that a lot of people don't know is that carbohydrates are protein sparing. So that means if we have adequate carbohydrates in the diet, we let protein do its thing. Protein can go fix and repair the muscles and the tissues and the cells. If we don't have enough carbohydrates, because they're so crucial for the body, the body will actually say, you know what, protein, we need to convert you into carbohydrates because we don't have enough right now. So stop doing your job. Don't repair that muscle. Come with us. We need to break you down into glucose. So I think a lot of people don't realize that, especially if they're like on a low calorie, low protein diet, you're not really doing much for yourself in terms of performance or maintaining any muscle mass. So that's really, really important to protect the protein. I don't know why. Oh, that's rice. Sorry. So we've got bread, banana, bowl of white rice, potato, pasta. Those are all really rich, good sources of carbohydrates. And as athletes, you can kind of think of, filling up half your plate with carbohydrates to replenish from a workout or to provide energy pre-workout. So they need to be included with each snack and filled up on half the plate as a general rule of thumb. So protein, I think a lot of people understand its role, supports muscle growth and repair, aids in recovery, and it's really important for the immune system, actually. So in addition to, just recovering muscles after a workout, because what happens is when we're working out, we're actually breaking down muscle tissue or tearing those fibers, which sounds awful, but it's not, it's okay. But in order for those tissues to come back together, recover, and grow stronger, we need to have protein in the diet. That doesn't mean that we need to have a protein shake with 100 grams of protein in it. Spreading intake out throughout the day is best. So a little bit at breakfast, lunch, part of your snack, part of dinner is the best way to go. Okay, so fats basically, they're part of that sustainable plate. They're going to help you feel full. They are really important for brain and heart health. And fat actually helps the body to absorb vitamins. So we have something called fat soluble vitamins. And if we don't have fat present when we're consuming them, it's going to be harder for our body to absorb. So they work together for optimal absorption. So if you're having a salad without dressing, for example, you're not going to be absorbing all those great fat soluble vitamins that are in the vegetables unless you add in some type of fat. So that could be avocado, olive oil, olives, nuts, seeds, whatever it is you're going to throw in your salad. And fats they are an energy source for low to moderate intensity activity. So after you used up, some of the carbs in the beginning of the higher intensity exercise, the body will start switching into using fat for energy. So we have the fish on here because fish are a good source of, heart healthy fat and a really great source of omega-3s, which I'm sure everyone has heard about. Omega-3s are essential. We cannot make them in the body, so we need to get them from food sources. And they're really important just for overall inflammation, heart health. And if you don't eat fish, they are found in some different plant sources, such as chia seeds and walnuts and flaxseed, but not in as high of an amount. So that's where, you might need to supplement if you're not taking, or if you're not eating fish, but that's a really important one, the omega-3s. Nuts and nut butter, seeds, like I said, avocado, olives, olive oil, all of those things are really great sources of heart healthy, and just performance-based fats. So this is an example. It looks a little squished here, but this would be my example of a heavy training day plate. So let's say you've got a really tough 2-hour practice, or you've got, 2 games in one day, or it's a heavy conditioning day. We want to be focusing on half a plate of carbs, quarter plate of veggies, quarter plate of protein. We might need some additional carbohydrates, so that can come from fruit or juice or some additional type of carbohydrate that you enjoy on the side. And then we want some good healthy fat. Not too much, just a little bit, because fat can slow down digestion, and we don't want to slow down the digestion of those carbohydrates. So definitely cook with olive oil or whatever it is. But we don't want to be having like a ribeye, mashed potatoes, and cream spinach. All of that fat is going to take too long to digest, and it's not going to get to the muscles and into the bloodstream as quickly as it needs to be in order to either provide energy or provide nutrients for recovery. So carbs, as we said, replenish your energy stores. It is fuel for the muscle, just like gas in a car. Protein, essential for muscle growth and repair. And then our vegetables, our fruits, all important for getting antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, all of the micronutrients that play a role in recovery. So I want to break it down a little bit more specifically, fueling for your sport before, during, and after. So in general, we want to be eating something every 3 to 4 hours in order to keep energy levels up. And especially if we're trying to just build some muscle, gain some strength, we really want to make sure we're fueling the machine, we'll say. So pre-workout, there's a couple options here. Everybody digests a bit differently. So I always suggest experimenting with what works for you, but not on a game day, not on a tournament day, early in the season on a practice day, to see what really suits you and feels good and gives you energy without any stomach issues. So in general, 3 to 4 hours before, if you have that time and you're the type of person that doesn't want to be eating too close to whatever activity that you're doing, I would get a nice solid meal. Either way, at 3 to 4 hours before, get a nice solid meal. And we want it to be simple and easy to digest, a little protein, good amount of carbs for energy. So it could be something like pasta, grilled chicken, and some spinach. If we've got about 2 hours, we can kind of have a little bit simple to digest peanut butter and jelly. You're going to get energy from the carbohydrates in the bread and the jelly, and a little bit of protein and fat from the peanut butter, to also like help slow down digestion and keep your energy levels stable. 60 to 90 minutes, we're definitely going to want something that's just going to provide some quick fuel. You don't want to be busy digesting while you're running or, whatever it is that your sport requires. So this might be something that you want even more easily digestible. So this could be some type of fruit smoothie or even a protein smoothie with some fruit and protein, or yogurt instead of the protein powder, just something that's already broken down for you, easy to digest. You don't want to feel full and heavy before your sport. And then anywhere between 0 and 45 minutes, like right before you have to practice or go out for the game, you want something that's primarily just carbohydrates, quick digesting carbohydrates. You want to get it to the muscle immediately. You want to give yourself immediate energy. You're going to want to do something like an easy piece of fruit or some of the honey stinger gummies, for example, or any other type of gummy. The point is, overall, big picture, the closer you get to the workout, the less you want to have of things like protein, fat, and fiber. And you want to focus way more on just simple carbohydrates. Everyone talks about simple carbohydrates versus complex, and everybody pushes the complex carbohydrates because they claim that they are healthier. When you're an athlete, you don't want to be having a high fiber piece of bread or brown rice right before you run out and around. We want something easy to digest. So that's why those two things are the better choices closer to a workout. Put your whole grains 3 to 4 hours before. So a lot of people forget or don't realize that it's important to fuel during the workout sometimes. So if it's a longer workout or a 2-hour game, or you got, 2 a day, whatever it is, it's going to be really important to have some mid-workout fuel. So if it's a quick workout, less than 45 minutes, and you're not outside in a heat wave, you could focus just on drinking some water to hydrate. Once it gets a little bit more intense, or especially if you're outside, between 45 to 75 minutes, you're going to want to have a sports drink that has some electrolytes and probably some carbohydrates. So electrolytes are important for maintaining hydration status, especially sodium, because that's what we lose in our sweat mostly. And we want a little bit of carbohydrates because remember, we're burning through carbohydrates as we're exercising, and we need to replenish them in order to have good energy. If we're going even longer, 1 to 2.5 hours, we want to be thinking of adding some additional carbohydrates about every hour of the workout. So whether that's coming from sports drinks or gummies or fruit, it needs to be easy to digest. You can't be running around and then eating some type of high fiber bar. So those are kind of the simple carbohydrate things, again, that I would recommend if you're doing, mid-workout fuel. So post-workout. Post-workout, I like to think of the 3 R's of recovery. I like to kind of have things in easy to memorize little things. We've got our fuel mix plate. Now we've got the 3 R's of recovery. So rehydrate, replenish, and rebuild. So after workout, and of course during and before, we always want to be hydrating. But water and electrolytes are lost in sweat during strenuous activity. So we do want to make sure we are rehydrating. We want to replenish our energy stores. So carbohydrates are the major fuel used for energy during heavy exercise. So we want to make sure we get a source of carbohydrates. I'll go through a couple of examples. And then we want to rebuild. We want to rebuild whatever's been broken down, whatever our body has been working on during the workout. So protein will help build and repair muscles after a hard workout, not to mention like all of our tissues and cells. So this is a quick, easy, just a couple of post-workout meal and snack ideas. Now, you don't have to go racing home or pack everything with you to eat immediately after exercise. I think if you are a very busy, intense athlete, and especially if you have 2-a-days, it's more ideal to get something as soon as possible. But as long as you're, I would say getting something in within the hour or two and spreading out a nice balanced day throughout the rest of the day, you're not going to be missing out on a window of opportunity. But definitely make sure you get this in. So if it's mealtime, again, you want to do something lean. You don't want to have too much fat and fiber because you want the protein and the carbohydrates to get to the muscles quickly. If we have too much fat or fiber, that's going to slow down digestion. They're great to have in the diet anywhere else, but right after a workout, we want to try to get the carbs and the protein to do their job. So something like grilled chicken, some rice, some vegetables, or some salmon, baked potatoes, sauteed spinach. If it's a lunchtime, maybe a turkey sandwich, some carrots, bag of pretzels, or baked pita chips, or maybe a granola bar. So getting some sort of combination of the carbs and the protein there. If we're doing more of a snack, let's say it's, I don't know, 2 o'clock practice, you get home at 4, it's not quite mealtime, and you're going to grab a snack just to hold you over until dinner. Chocolate milk is still the tried and true most popular post-workout in sports because it has fluid, it has carbohydrate, and it has protein, just like we talked about with the 3 R's of recovery. So it's got all 3 of those right in there. Also could do yogurt with berries and honey, or something like a hard-boiled egg and a cup of grapes, or any fruit of choice as your carbohydrate source. We could, of course, do a fruit smoothie with some milk and whey protein or yogurt, or even a small can of tuna and some crackers. These could all be good combos of protein and carbs as your post-workout meal or snack. Okay, so supplements is another big topic and something that I get a lot of questions about in the sports world. I feel like everyone thinks that they need to be taking supplements because we have stores strictly dedicated to supplements, and everyone wants to feel good and improve their performance, which is totally understandable. But there's a couple things I think we need to know and be smart about when we're looking at supplements. So first of all, what is a supplement? It's a manufactured product, and it includes things like vitamins. So when you go to the store, pick up your vitamin C, minerals, protein powder, probiotics, branched chain amino acids, you'll see those. Even some of the gels that are performance gels, these are all considered supplements, and they'll have like a supplement facts label. But there's a couple things that we want to make sure we're addressing in our diet before we even think about supplements. So I always like to use a food first approach, considering any gaps in the diet before adding in a supplement. Exception there is if you're deficient in something and actually need a supplement in order to fix that deficiency. So a lot of people wind up needing to take a vitamin D supplement, or some people, especially vegans, are low in B12. They probably have to take a B12. So there's some things that are just, okay, we've got to do this based on, how well our body absorbs different vitamins and minerals, certain health conditions. But we're talking just the general healthy athlete here. And I think most of us, if we can create a nice balanced diet with various types of nutritious food, we can probably get everything that we need. Again, exceptions everywhere, and every person is different. And I always recommend supplements on an individual basis, and also use lab work to determine that, to see if there's any deficiencies. But this is kind of just an overview and an introduction to what the supplements actually are, because I don't think people sometimes realize that protein powders fall in that category. So the question of, do you need a supplement? So I wrote down the foundational things, the things that you've got to have situated that need to just be your foundation before you even consider adding anything else. First, you need good sleep. I would say that is the first and foremost, most important thing. Sleep is when your body is recovering and recycling and repairing. So if you miss out on those really important sleep hours, you're not going to be 100% in many different ways, but your performance is going to rely heavily on how much sleep you are getting for recovery. Nutrition, again, if you're eating, I don't know, a plain bagel for breakfast, and then you're getting like rice and orange juice for lunch, and then maybe some cookies for a snack, and McDonald's for dinner, we have a lot to do. There's a lot of things missing from your food that we really need to just correct with food first. It doesn't mean that you can't have any of those things, but are we getting the important stuff? Are we getting the stuff that is essential for our body to function and repair and recover and perform? So a supplement's not going to fix that. It's taking a multivitamin if you do not eat fruits and vegetables is not going to fix the fact that you do not eat fruits and vegetables. There's other things in the fruits and vegetables that are really important. And food is honestly the best way to get a lot of these things. Some of these supplements aren't fully absorbed. We'll talk about what kind of supplements to like consider and question. I don't know if that's on the next slide, but that's also super, super important. You can't just supplement a poor diet. Hydration, I think everyone knows that's really, really important. And I'm going to go into hydration and why in one of the next slides. And rest, if you're go all the time and you're not giving your body proper rest, no matter what you're eating or what you're supplementing with, it's not going to make a huge difference if your muscles and your tendons and your ligaments aren't getting the proper rest that they need. Let me just see. So the last thing I just want to say about supplements is it's really important to realize that they're not regulated. They're not regulated by the government. So anyone can put out a supplement. It doesn't have to be tested for any types of harmful substances, or even just to make sure it has what it says it has on the bottle. And typically nobody looks at them unless somebody has a bad reaction. So I always like to look for supplements that have been third-party tested, so I know what I'm getting in there in terms of the amounts and the actual product, and that I'm not getting any harmful substances or substances that I would test, that would show up on a test if I am a college athlete or a professional athlete. You always, as an elite athlete, need to look for supplements that have a label that says NSF or informed sport. That means that they've been third-party tested and it's an expensive process for a company to do. So they really thoroughly check out this supplement and okay it for sport. So I think that's really important. So moving on to hydration, I think there's a couple interesting points. I think everybody knows that they need to drink water and hydrate and all of that. But I think when you talk about the specifics as it pertains to performance, some of these might kind of stick with you and make you reconsider how much you're drinking and make sure you get enough. So I wrote here, don't wait until you're thirsty. Once you feel thirst, you're likely already dehydrated, sorry. And according to some research, by the time your body's thirst mechanism has kicked in, you've already lost 2% of your body weight in water. And that's your body's signal to get something to drink. And fluid loss of just 2 to 4% of your body weight can cut your strength training workout by as much as 21% and your aerobic power by 48%. Being dehydrated can make you feel a little bit more fatigued. It can, if you're not lubricating your joints and your muscles and things like that, you're more likely to, injure them potentially. So not only is it very clear that fluid loss can impede performance, it's also helping, it can also lead to injury. And as I mentioned before, sports drinks can be used, and I think they're really important, especially if you're exercising intensely for 45 minutes or longer, because they provide fluids, they provide carbohydrates, and they provide electrolytes. And again, I'll just go into more detail on the next slide. 2 slides actually. One way to tell the easy way to tell if you're hydrated with the amount of water that you're drinking, instead of counting all of your cups of water that you're taking in. Look at your pee. It's not the coolest, most fun thing, but that will give you a lot of the information that you need in terms of how hydrated your body is. So the lighter, more pale colors mean you're well hydrated. Anything a little bit darker than that, you're already dehydrated. And hopefully you never have dark yellow or brown pee, because then you're very severely dehydrated. So that's the best way to kind of assess yourself and say, hey, am I actually getting enough hydration throughout the day? And if I'm not, what can I do better? So looping back to the sports drinks, as I said, a lot of people try to avoid sports drinks. Oh my gosh, they have sugar, they have this, they have that. That is the entire point of a sports drink. You want easy carbohydrates to get directly to the muscles to give you energy. If you're sitting, watching TV on the couch all day, you probably don't need a Gatorade. But as an athlete, when you're running around and you're sweating, which some people could lose up to 3 liters of sweat, that is a lot of sodium. And sodium, if we're completely depleted and we're only drinking water and not an electrolyte solution, we're not going to be hydrating as well as we could be, because sodium helps retain water in the body and helps keep us hydrated. Not to mention it relays nerve impulses to communicate messages throughout the body, helps muscles contract or relax. Very, very important for performance to make sure we're replenishing that sodium. The other part of this is after about 60 to 90 minutes of intense exercise, you can completely deplete the carbohydrate stores that are sitting in reserve in your muscle. And when we're out of carbohydrate, when we're out of energy, our body slows down, we feel heavy, we bonk, whatever word you want to use, and we can't push as hard, we can't go as intensely, or we have to stop altogether. So it's important to be rehydrating with a little bit of a carbohydrate solution as well for those longer, more intense workouts. So we're providing our body with more energy. Okay, so that kind of brings us to just a couple of the key takeaways here. First and foremost, aiming for a fuel mix at each meal and snack, not cutting out food groups, not avoiding carbohydrates. We need our carbs, we need our protein, and we need some fat in there for a sustainable, nutritious meal. Focusing on eating every 3 to 4 hours, that's about how long it takes for our body to digest our previous meal and when our blood sugar might start dropping again. And when we drop our blood sugar, we're more irritable, we're tired, we can't perform as well, we're hangry, if you want to use that word. And if we go too long, we could actually end up overeating later because our body is just trying to catch up. Hydration, use a sports drink. Don't be afraid of a sports drink. Use it wisely. If you're sweating a lot or you're having really long workouts, you're going to need something that has sodium and carbohydrates. Part of this is planning ahead, maybe bringing some, packing some of the fruit or the gummies or different snacks that you can have before, during, or after your workout, or sport rather. Obviously incorporating plenty of fruits and vegetables. They're going to provide vitamins, minerals, all essential for recovery and healing and performance. And one thing that we didn't dive into today, but is super important, is to stay away from the fad diets. Diets are great marketing tools. They make all these great promises. If they worked, we wouldn't have a million of them. And most of the time, they're not created by professionals. Even if a doctor's name is next to them, doctors have 1 or 2 nutrition classes. So they only know so much about nutrition. And what works for one person is not going to work for you. If we all ate exactly the same, we would still have completely different bodies and completely different capacities for performance. So I think that's a really, really important one, because there's a lot of buzzwords. There's a lot of low carb. There's a lot of vegan. There's a lot of keto. We need all of the foods, and we need them in balance in order to perform and feel our absolute best. So I think we wrap up here and we could take any questions.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I wanted to ask a quick question about in terms of dieting. When I was younger, I remember playing a lot of sports and like
Yeah.
running to the local McDonald's, eating like 4 Big Macs and then going back and playing all day. Is it something changed in either the molecular structure of our bodies and how we process over time, or is there some type of change in the preservative in the foods that are making you feel more bloated or sluggish nowadays?
So the beauty of being a kid, I guess. But also I think, you know, as we get older, um, you know, as kids, we recover faster. Things don't, you know, there's all a million different reasons why we could still do what we do, even if we are not eating the best or sleeping the best or anything. I think that if we have done it for a long time and that's our main fuel source, I feel like it almost kind of catches up a little bit, right? If you over time, even just like if you are somebody that's healthy and taking care of themselves, like eventually over time as we get older, like our joints don't move as well. I feel like in some ways, if you're just not fueling and getting the proper nutrition, you might be fine on the outside when you're younger, but as you get older, from the inside out, it's going to start affecting how you perform and how you feel. So, and you know, malnutrition doesn't just mean you're not eating enough or getting enough food. It could mean that you're just missing out on key nutrients that help make you healthy. So if you're just having McDonald's and milkshakes all day, you know, we're probably not getting those good micronutrients and other supporting nutrients to help make us fully nourished, if that makes sense.
Okay. And the other question I had in terms of eating, there's certain foods like I guess a lot of heavy red meat that makes you feel sluggish fast. Is there a reason why that heavy texture tends to like either put you to sleep or make you feel like logy or
Yeah,
sluggish?
that's a great question. So red meat, many cuts usually are pretty high in fat. So anytime we have a fatty meal, it takes a long time to digest. So it's not giving us like, even if we have like a roasted potato, it's not giving us that quick energy because the fat and the protein is taking a long time to digest. And that can actually make us feel a little bit more fatigued rather than energized. So that's why we always say, try not to do a big fatty meal before a workout because, you know, it's just like Thanksgiving. Like you've got all these different heavy foods and, you know, you're going to fall asleep on the couch afterwards, right? So you want to keep it lean, carb based. I have nothing against Thanksgiving food. I have nothing against steak, but they shouldn't be in your pre-workout meal.
And earlier you mentioned to stay hydrated, but you have to take in some type of electrolytes. A lot of times we hear that, you know, the certain drinks are not as healthy. So what would be a replacement of an electrolyte that wouldn't be a drink in form? That would probably be in food.
So you can get electrolytes in food. You know, you can get your potassium, your magnesium, your calcium, your sodium. We could definitely get sodium from our food. But it's not going to help us in that very moment when we are sweating out a lot of those electrolytes. So, and you're probably not going to be wanting to eat like during the workout, something that's going to provide adequate sodium because it would be a lot of food. So I think it's best in the liquid form and to have it during the tough workout so it gets there immediately. You're not kind of chomping down on food, which can then slow down your digestive system, stop, you know, slow down the blood flow to the muscles and impede performance. So I think it is best to get it through a drink. And there's so many now, like besides Gatorade, there's Drip Drop, there's Liquid IV if you're a very heavy sweater, there's Hydrant, there's Scratch. There's so many different ones that everyone can really find one that works well for them. There's even some homemade recipes, like literally putting like some salt and carbohydrate solution to make your homemade sports drink. But it would just be too heavy, too much food, and not efficient enough if we tried to just get it from food in that moment.
And then my last question before I throw it to anybody in the chat or that's listening. the one thing that I notice is when you try to eat healthy, say if you stick to lean meats or maybe seafood and maybe salads, sometimes you feel like you're energetic, but you're hungry all the time.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
is that? Why does that happen?
Because you probably cut back too much. So I always think the best way to go about shifting things is to assess where you're currently at and make smaller changes. If you're noticing, hey, I'm doing, I'm really not getting any vegetables at my meal. Maybe it's not overhauling the whole thing. It's just, what can I add? If you go from having large meals, carb heavy meals, higher fat meats, and then all of a sudden you're just eating, salad and chicken, you're going to be starving, because not only are you reducing just a ton of calories, it's not the same volume of food or anything. So you have to take it step by step, and you still need a fuel mix. You still need carbs, protein, fats, and then you could throw in some color in order to feel full. So I think it's really that drastic cut that really messes people up. We don't need to cut that much. It's a very small amount, gradually over time. And same thing with just changing some of the things in general. Like if you usually have, a ribeye for dinner every single night, maybe 3 nights, you're going to switch that to fish. And then it's the same components everywhere else. So I think it's more of baby steps, and, we're not infants, most of us that are thinking about changing our food. So we need way more calories than most of us think we do.
Oh, okay, thank you. Is anybody, maybe Elijah might have a question?
Yeah, I have one.
Hi.
How are we supposed to be getting our healthy fats without gaining them unhealthily?
Without getting unhealthy or gaining I've missed the last part.
Without getting unhealthy.
So I think that just, let's go into the question of is it unhealthy? So fats are an essential part of our diet, and they're really, really important for our brain health and our heart health. So, there's a difference between getting fat from olive oil and avocados and olives than if you're getting it from, baked goods all day. So you can get the healthy fats in, and it could be as simple as if you're just cooking your vegetables or your proteins with some olive oil, that counts as your fat. Or if you're adding some avocado to your toast in the morning, that counts as some fat. Or throwing, some olives in your salad. It doesn't have to be that we're throwing a half pound of butter into anything. But using it just for cooking in smaller amounts will be able to still provide the fat that you need, which again is important for not only the brain and the heart, but our hormone production as well, which is in charge of our metabolism. And of course, especially for anyone that wants to build any muscle, you don't want to be eating too little fat, because that affects your hormones, and testosterone, estrogen, both really important for building up muscle mass and maintaining strength. So fats are essential. We aren't going to get unhealthy just from fats alone. It's everything all together. What's the bigger picture? What's the main components of our diet? Are we getting that balance? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Of course.
I had a question about juicing. Does it make sense to convert all your meals to some type of liquid form? Would that sustain over time, or is that just a short fix, a quick fix that can be reverted once you start eating again?
And are we talking about the goal being weight loss?
Weight loss, or maybe just maintaining your current weight so you don't gain any more?
So I am absolutely not for juicing. So number one, it's miserable. Nobody wants to just drink juice all the time. Food is enjoyable. Food is delicious. When we chew food, we're going to feel more full. There's no reason to just be subsisting on juice, and especially when they're just fruit and vegetable based. Fruit and vegetables are great for you, but if you're losing weight very quickly doing this whole juicing thing, and you're also not eating any protein, we're just, by the end of the week, you're really just losing some muscle mass. That's all that's really doing. And the more muscle we have, the higher our metabolism, the stronger we feel. Once we break that down, our body is less efficient. It burns less calories. Like, why do we want to put ourselves in that situation? I think that's what a lot of people get stuck in when they're dieting. They cut way too much. They lose water, then they lose muscle mass. And it's just this big cycle because nobody's just maintaining their body and maintaining the muscle that actually can make the metabolism more, just your body more efficient. So I think anytime we have to take out entire nutrient groups, it's never a good idea, because then we know it's not sustainable to stay on juices. It's not even super exciting to stay on juices for more than a couple of days or more than an hour, in my opinion. So we're eventually going to have to learn how to eat. We're going to have to learn either what are some of the behavioral things that are making my eating, making me eat in a way that I'm not feeling good about or that I'm not comfortable with. So I always see it as like a quick Band-Aid. It's doomed to not work, whether it's a day in, 2 weeks in, and especially when you go back to eating, because let's say you did lose weight. Okay, well, you weren't eating anything. You were eating really low calorie. So once you start integrating food again and your body has been starved for a week or two, the body is going to want to hold on. It's going to want to take everything in, or you're at a larger risk for binge eating, where it just like you don't feel like you have any control because your body is so starved. So I never think any form of starvation is the way to go. It always backfires. And I think in general, it's always just the baby steps. And some people ask me, okay, but what about a detox? Your liver and your kidneys are built for that. That's exactly what they do for you every single day. We don't need to help them. They know what they're doing. So we don't need a detox juice or a detox cleanse either.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
There's no more questions in the crowd. If Elijah doesn't have any more questions, then I will wrap it up.
Awesome.
Okay, so sounds like he doesn't have any more questions. So I want to thank you again for returning, giving us this great nutritionist talk.
Happy to do it. And if
Thank
there's any other questions and they reach out to you, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay, so thank you all for joining again. We'll catch you at the next session. Everyone have a great night.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.